So, Ben, could you talk a little bit about the very beginning, the first impetus of this film when you were first considering making it? What were the thoughts in that moment?
Yeah, I mean, I was watching Poltergeist for the millionth time, and if you remember, that film begins with a golden retriever wandering through the house, clearly clued on to the fact that the house is about to be haunted for any of the human characters. And I thought somebody should tell a story entirely from a dog's perspective in a haunted house. And the rest was just taking the time to figure out what would that story actually look like.
Come on up, Larry. You can join us on up here. Don't be shy. And so that was the impetus for it. And you had a dog. Were you immediately certain you were going to make this movie with your own dog?
Absolutely not. I started out thinking that I would use another dog actor, that I would, write the script, figure out, the best dog actor in a casting process. But as we were writing the film, we were also making little proof of concepts, shorts, that explored how would you tell a story just through a dog's point of view. And doing that, Indy is my dog. I was working with him, making these little tests, and he won some acting awards, and that kind of forced our hand to what you see today.
And so along that process, what were some of the early discoveries in that process? Things that you realized were going to work, things that you realized were not going to work, things that surprised you?
Yeah, I mean, I think Indy's superpower is what you see on screen, but will not see on stage, because there's a lot going on here. But in our home where we filmed the movie, he's frequently has this very intense, thoughtful-looking stare.
I noticed up in the green room, he was kind of doing it up there.
Yeah, totally. And for a filmmaker, if you have a character who has this really thoughtful, look that you can use as a objective shot to then pair with a shot reverse shot, you can create a performance just out of that kind of intense, gears turning look. So that was one of the early things we figured out that he had that was really specific and special to Indy, that we could kind of build an entire movie off of.
Right. Wow. Yeah. No, that totally makes a lot of sense. Okay, so I'm gonna. There's I feel like one of the great spoilers of a Q&A or an interrogation of this film, which changes the way I thought about the film entirely, was when I realized the shooting schedule. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so it was a very unusual production by virtue of the main character is Indy, who is not a person or a trained actor. He's an enormous X factor, and he can only work a few hours a day. So we filmed the movie nights and weekends, 1 to 3 hours a day over 400 days over 3 years, which is not a normal way to make a movie, but worked for us. Indy's my dog, and we filmed in our own house.
So one of the next things I thought about that and brings to Larry getting involved. So can you talk about that once you realized that that's how you were shooting in that? Can you talk about how the humans who were cast in the film got involved, including Larry?
Yeah, totally. So we started making the movie with Indy. Most of the shots are either of him or from his point of view. Naturally, because he's only 19 inches off the ground, that props the people in his life in the story on camera, so you mostly see them from the waist down, which opened up the possibility that we don't need to bring actors on until late in the game. My wife and I, my wife who's the film's producer, would be able to stand in as the human talent we didn't think the majority of the film originally, but what ended up being all the human bodies you see in the film, except Larry, are played by my wife and I, and the voices are added later. And there's advantages and disadvantages to that. One advantage is that Indy knows and actually likes me, so there's scenes of affection that are genuine and real, as method as you can get. The disadvantage and the challenge is that for Todd and Vera, who are played by Shane Jensen and Ariel Friedman, they needed to put the voices into the performance after the fact, kind of the way, very different movie, but the way James Earl Jones does the voice of Darth Vader while not being in the suit. So we had these actors who had to layer in performances on top of bodies that are not their own, that are doing things on set that are not for performance. In the reality of the filming, I'm talking to Indy, telling him he's a good boy, and giving him cues and instructions. So what was being said during recording was not at all what was happening in the actual film you see here. That entire soundscape is recreated in post. Huge credit to the sound team as well. All the sound, the haunted house team. Yes, they're here. Kelly, Brian, you guys are the best.
Give it up. That was the thing that blew me away the most, because about like 30 seconds into this film, I was like, there's not a single sound that's real in this movie.
That is very much true. Maybe the barks are real and that's about it, but every single footstep of the dog is added in post, and it's just like, it is a Herculean feat that they pulled it off.
It's a beautiful job, and the soundscape is gorgeous. I mean, it sounds so fantastic and so evocative. So yeah, let's give it up one more time for the sound team who's out there.
But speaking of cast, so there were two kind of different avenues. We need to add the voices to the main characters of Todd and Dara, and we also have this grandpa character who appears both out of the past on screen through VHS tapes, and then in a gruesome flashback. Enter Larry.
So Larry, how did you first get introduced into this project, and what did you think when you first realized what was going on?
Well, I was having an embroidery made of my werewolf from a movie I made called Blackout, and Hannah Lamar was the embroiderer. She was a new friend, a new neighbor. I live upstate much of the time, and she said, "I've got a friend who's a filmmaker. Would you consider doing a day on his shoot?" So I talked to Ben briefly, and then he sent me a couple of clips of Indy, and I said, I want to act with Indy, which I did, by the way, because Indy plays two roles. That's never been mentioned in the press.
Oh no, it is two dogs. It's two separate dogs. They just look very similar.
Yes. All right, fair enough. So anyway, that was my experience. I just went for a day, and we did several scenes, and it was great. And I feel like he directed me very much the way he directed his dog. I was asked to do the long stare, and yeah, exactly. I did get treats as well.
The difference is in 400 days plus of making the movie, Indy never once read a script, had no idea he was making a movie. You, on the other hand, knew exactly what to do. Filming your death scene was, I feel like you've done that or close to that before. So after 300 days of a dog who would randomly wander off set for no reason, to have an actor who can read lines was an absolute treat.
I have done many death scenes, so this was one of many, but I also just want to commend, so I went into the house, and in the basement they built this terrifying portal to hell, and you could tell they had been living this movie as a couple for, well, I guess 4 years it turns out. I was really at the tail end, right? So you knew you had a picture by then.
Yeah, we had shot essentially principal photography, meaning the bulk of the film, all of Indy's coverage, was captured before we brought in any of the cast, either in the vocals or or for Larry on camera. Again, not a normal way to make a movie.
So, as I'm sure many horror films out here are familiar with your work, but for those who don't know, Larry, in addition to being a great scary grandpa, is also a very accomplished and iconic independent filmmaker of horror films, low-budget films like this that have been made in many strange and wonderful ways over the years. From that perspective of someone who's been down this path a million times and produced other filmmakers making their first crazy horror film, how did this project compare to some of the others that you worked on previously?
Well, that was the thing, is that I went down really as a favor, but also I liked the spirit of ingenuity. I could tell it was happening, with the dog and the whole thing, and I thought, well, this is the thing I like to support. The projects that come from an odd angle. I mean, obviously they weren't hugely financed. It was just something I like to support, these impulses to make art, if you will, or just something. So, and as I say, I did see some footage, and I could see there was a reserve in the filmmaking. It wasn't just sort of random. So I always like to support that impulse, and I was happy to lend my name. But what's sweet about it is, then you don't hear from them for quite a while, and then suddenly they're in South by, and you realize, oh, that's so cool. This one might be one that busts through. So that's really, it's just such a pleasure to be part of a project that, you know, we all try to punch through with an individual vision, and here's an example. So it's just great to be part of it.
Before we bring out our special guest, a couple, like one or two other questions about making the film. I guess one of the things that also struck me is there's been very few movies ever that are even made sort of remotely from the perspective of a dog, horror or otherwise. There are a couple of weird horror films that basically are, like Baxter, which for those of you who don't know is a crazy movie, French film about a psychopath French dog. And he does the voiceover with this crazy French accent. Definitely worth watching, but a totally different film. So I was wondering, were there any films that you actually thought of as reference points for making something like this?
Yeah, I think the two poles of dog acting and filmmaking that we thought about all the time, where one I'm sure people will know is Air Bud, which that might seem odd, but the dog acting in that movie is pretty remarkable. There's some scenes of, you know, genuine emotion and also just like athleticism, which is pretty amazing. On the other hand, there's a dog in the movie The Thing, the original Thing, who also plays White Fang in Ethan Hawke, Disney White Fang films, is one of, John Carpenter says this on the director's DVD commentary track, just how good of an actor he was, because he had this intense stare, and Carpenter loves point of view shots and subjectivity. He was able to make such a meal out of that dog, what he could do with that really intense stare. So we were always thinking, how do we get Indy as close to Jed as possible? So Jed, one of the greats.
Truly. There's some lesser performances by dogs in that movie as well, but there's a bunch of dogs.
Yeah, there's a whole kennel full of other dogs that act very differently than Jed. It's pretty remarkable.
Exactly. Which is, as soon as you mentioned, I rewatched that movie recently. I was like, wow, that dog can really, it stands out.
Yeah.
So I guess one other thing, relating to the perspective, did you know right from the beginning that you didn't want it literally to be dog POV, that you wanted it, was going to be dog eyes view sort of, but not actually, seeing what Indy sees?
Yeah, it was important that we wanted to try and tell the story in a way that it's conventional filmmaking, in some ways very fundamental. It's shot, reverse shot, using shot size and blocking to tell the story rather than dialogue, which you can't do. And one of kind of our North Stars for both making the film in that style and also trying to capture this dog performance, which is obviously a bit different than Air Bud or any film where the dog has a voice or can sing or do things outside of the normal realm of possibility, was I just mentioned White Fang, but Jack London, who wrote White Fang and Call of the Wild, has this quote that he wanted to create a character that felt more resonant and real because it was guided by simple sensation and basic reasoning rather than the kind of thinking we can do as human characters. So there's something really, I think, special about watching a film that kind of plays out like a normal movie, but the audience is kind of doing some of the story math almost, putting two and two together, in some cases because Indy can't, which is kind of an interesting perspective to be in as an audience member.
Yeah. Relating to that, I know I've seen a couple of interviews with you where you've spoken a bit about also the Kuleshov effect, which I think some people are familiar with. Are you film school kids out there? But could you talk a little bit about that and getting these seemingly emotional performance out of Indy?
Yeah, totally. So I mentioned at the top that one of Indy's superpowers is his intense stare, that kind of unblinking. He's not panting. It's a neutral expression, but it seems like there's gears turning behind his eyes. So the Kuleshov effect is this experiment from the birth of cinema where if you show a shot of an actor's face who's doing nothing, they're not emoting, it's a neutral expression followed by another shot of what they are purported to see, you'll create meaning. So if you show an actor with a blank expression and then a bowl of food, you'll think that person's hungry. If you see the same shot of that actor followed by the shot of a coffin, you'll think that guy must be sad. For us, we're able to use Indy's, intense blank stare with a shot of that, shot of a empty corner, and you kind of project your feelings onto him. people are always asking, how did you get Indy to look scared? And the truth is, we definitely didn't. We didn't do anything. The feeling is coming from you, and you're projecting it onto him because the movie, the shots, the music, the sound design is telling you how to feel, and you put you.
In the history of cinema, like horror films, they know the language of cinema, right?
Totally, yeah. I think it's actually an interesting lesson about like what makes great performances really work. Like we as audiences bring so much to actors who might not do a whole lot. We always like to joke that we were trying to get to Ryan Gosling in Drive, where he's doing very, very little, and not Ryan Gosling in Barbie, where he's literally dancing like Indy could do if we didn't air condition the set.
So I think we're ready to bring out our guest. So just wanted to mention, Indy is a dog and is very not accustomed to having loud noises. So for bringing him out, we have a system.
Yeah, so just as you say, he's not accustomed to loud noises. So instead of clapping or making a lot of noise, does everyone know how to sign applause? Does this? So we're going to sign applause instead of making a bunch of noise. So he just thinks this is a room full of people. Yeah, so we can bring Indy up.
Should mention that we also have producer Kari Fisher.
Yeah, so the person bringing up Indy is Kari. She's my wife and the producer of the film. And important to note, this is the first film she's made because she's a scientist. Oh, yeah.
But I got the warning earlier that we had to make sure that we didn't have too much popcorn all over the place because he would get distracted by that as well. So we kept the popcorn away from the step and repeat, but we couldn't keep it away from everywhere.
Yeah, popcorn is one of his favorite foods in the world.
As it is for many dogs. So I guess first question for you guys now that and our little star here. One of the things that I thought about was, you know, when you work with someone on a film for a really long time, it changes your relationship, or on any art project for a long period of time, it changes your relationship with humans. I wondered, did anything about making this movie change your relationship with Indy in any way?
I mean, I don't think it was possible for us to love Indy any more than we did at the start of making the film. I mean, we were the weirdos who spent 3 years making a movie with our dog. I will say, you know, there's so many little things I appreciate and notice about him now, little gestures, the way he tilts his head. And partly it's because, you know, I'm trying to figure out how can I use that to create a performance, biggest air quotes possible. I cannot say enough. He does not know he was in a movie. But yeah, I mean, you know, like a lot of dogs, he's a member of our family.
And I guess same version of that question, but for you and Kari, working on this film for hundreds of days in the house with him was like, I can't imagine it was always rainbows and flowers along the way. But yeah, like what was that experience like in terms of, you know, being a daily part of your existence?
Want to switch? Sure. Here, this is Kari.
Non-slobbering hand. No, I mean, it was like having a really weird hobby for 3 years, really full on. But I would say kind of one of the most surreal moments is probably the 20th time that I am scraping mud with a spatula off the bed. It was playing the shape, so that was pretty bizarre. But we're a good team, so it all went well. It obviously worked out.
And so this was the first film that you worked on yourself personally?
Yes.
So I think there was a previous quote earlier in the evening. There's the W.C. Fields quote, which is never make a movie never work with animals and children. So are you going to spend the next 4 years working on a movie with a small child or something like that?
No.
No, I'm good. I mean, this was a pretty singular and fun experience. And, I like getting to play with your dog every day is pretty awesome. So I'll stick with that one for sure.
Yeah, well, amazing. Would you guys ever obviously not make a movie just like this, but next steps for you guys? There's nothing back there actually.
He's desperately looking for popcorn.
Yeah. I can smell the popcorn. It's got to be here somewhere. So our little friend here is getting impatient for sure. But I want to say, first of all, thank you guys so much for coming out here for this screening. we are going to let Indy leave because he does get a little bit worked out. So if you guys don't mind, we're going to, if you guys can all stay in your seats while Indy departs so he doesn't freak out too much on his way out, that'd be great. And we can maybe have one last question while Indy makes his way to the green room and some treats back there.
Sure. Yeah. Good. Although, if you want to tell Indy he did a nice job, everyone can say the title of the movie together. If they want on the count of 3, 3, 2, 1. Good boy. Yes. Thank you. Yeah. You want to? Cool. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Bye, Indy.
Bye, Indy.
So first of all, I mentioned earlier before, but I will say it once again. This movie comes out on October 3rd. Definitely, with all the different photos. If you got any great photos of Indy or the other dog influencers who are here, absolutely post them, spread the word, get the word out about this very special film. I'm sure you guys all really loved it. The movie comes out October 3rd. Coming out in theaters all over the place, so spread the word. Even tell your friends in other cities, because IFC is taking this really wide. And aside from this film making its way out into the world, what do the two of you guys have going on next?
I'm editing a movie I made with several monsters in it.
Keep an eye out for the monsters. And are you? Do you know what you're doing next?
Yeah, I guess I can say I have another film in the works that uses perspective, literally, as part of the storytelling. It's not from another animal, although I have heard all the dog, parrot, and turtle horror ideas, maybe for the third film. But no, I think, the point of view, making a movie that for as long as I did this way, I'm kind of obsessed with how perspective and point of view can be used in genre and horror especially, but more broadly as well. So more to come.
Wonderful. Well, keep an eye out for those. Spread the word about Good Boy, and we're going to we'll have a bit of a reception. The bar will be back open if you guys want to hang out and meet some of the other dogs who are here. As I mentioned, Litterbox. I've got cats on my brain now. Letterbox will be up there. There's a joke to be made there that's better than the one I just did. Letterbox will be up in the balcony. They'll be doing some interviews with people who enjoyed the film. So head on up there for that. You can just go up and about the stairs where you came if you wanted to talk to them, and make your way back over there. Have a wonderful drink. One last hand for the creators of Good Boy. Thank you. Thank you all so much, everyone. Have a great night.